got a few minutes before we start. As we start to get some more people on here, if you would do me a favor and let me know just in the Q&A box there, if you guys scroll up and you can get to the Q&A box, let me know where put your name in there and where you're from, and let me know where you found out about the webinar, if it was through social or YouTube. Just trying to kind of keep track on a few things. So as we've got a few minutes to till we get started, like I said, let me know. Let me know where you're coming from. Kimball's. How's the audio sound? Audio okay so far? Keith, what's up, Matt? Thanks, Keith. Chris. What's up, man? Awesome, Bill, thank you. Joe, thank you. Riley. All right, Riley, thanks. I have to let Juice know I appreciate that. All right, gonna give it a couple more minutes here and we will begin. This is getting recorded as well, so I'll add it up onto, I believe I'll probably add it up onto our YouTube channel tomorrow, at some point tomorrow. Justin, what's up? Chase. Awesome, man. Thank you guys for commenting there. Okay. Tim, nice to have you. All right. Well, I'm going to probably get started. Like I said, we are going to be recording this either way. So if you happen to jump in late, you should get a link on the recording as well. And well, like I said, we're going to post it on YouTube. But I wanted to do something as season starting for some and about to get kicked off for others. What we do with our Alpha Bowhunting Pyramid coaching structure and everything, we go deeper than how much is your FOC or you know, what type of bow build you're doing, and getting beyond the gear setup more into the methodologies and practices that you actually take out in the field. And those of you who have been through some of the seminars we've done, some of this is we're gonna be touching on a few things, refresh maybe. Any of you who are new to what we do on our coaching structure, this really kind of starts to break down what is practical as you head out in the field. And I'm going to go ahead and just get right into the slides here and start with the why. So again, the Alpha Bowhunting goal, if you will, is to help you raise your overall game. One of my key points when I do seminars is we want to help you build a system or create your own system, your playbook, if you will. You know, some people say just stuff that you put in your toolbox. And so much of what makes you confident in the field, those decisions you're making as you're getting in on a stock, or possibly you're approaching a situation to identify, hey, you know, is this going to be a situation where I can get close enough for a shot? No shot here. Understanding all the elements, understanding all the moving parts. What my goal is, if we can talk about this kind of stuff before you're in the field, then when you're in the field, you know, those clouded moments when we have the adrenaline through the roof, if we've thought about some of these issues and topics ahead of time, then when you're out in the field, hopefully it's just second nature and you're able to just kind of flow through it. So I want to go back to something if any of you have read my book, Shoot or Don't Shoot, or listened to the audio book, I talk in the beginning of that book about success rates. And I did some research in Colorado, specifically more on elk, as that's where the better data was, and, you know, more elk hunters, obviously. So I started with that, and that success rate for harvest for archery hunters is in that 8 to 12% range, sometimes 9.5, sometimes 11, but it was pretty consistent year after year. And when you start wondering, like, understanding what we do with our coaching structure, I'm kind of backing up quickly, and I'm going to try to give you the cliff notes as we get to the why. That top 10%, if you will, is what the goal is, in my opinion, if you're really looking to harvest an animal. So much of what we experience as bow hunters, you know, we talk about, oh, it's not all about the kill, it's also about the journey and the process, and that's correct. I agree with that. But if you are truly trying to be successful with your preparation and what you do in the field, that end result is as important as that journey. So this is kind of the scratching the surface with the numbers standpoint. As we go further along and I look more into the data, we look at what they give you as a harvest for a bull elk. And in this situation, the Colorado regs, they really don't break down mature bull elk or not, but it's 3 to 4%. I believe one year it was almost 5%, but I went back like 6-7 years and I did this research a couple years ago. Haven't done anything recently, but the numbers were fairly consistent. So now as you start looking at being successful is really into that top 10%, being successful on a bull elk, and in some units in Colorado, there's no point restriction. So it could be a spike, could be a 2-3 point bull, or it could be a mature bull that gets clustered in that 3 to 4% range. So as we move along from that and we start to further identify what is the top 1% and where we go with that, and now we start talking about consistent success on, in this situation, mature bull elk year after year. Now, at some point, a harvest of a cow elk, because maybe the bull elk that you were trying to get after, the herd bull, whatever, didn't give you a shot opportunity. And if that is your, if that's your end goal is to, hey, I want to shoot a big bull elk, or if not, I'm going to put meat in the freezer, you're still consistent year after year. And then when you start to identify what really is that top 1%, in my opinion, the alpha, the that hunter that, you know, the guys and girls that you look for, you look up to, you look to for advice, you look to for guidance, you look to for answering questions with gear or topics. And one of the biggest things that I'm going to say is the difference between those people that, from my perspective, is this. The understanding of the situation as it unfolds is very seamless in most cases with those types of hunters. The decision-making process is very quick. they commit, they from the information they've put together, their toolbox again, if you will, their system, whether it was information they've learned from their grandfathers, their fathers, uncles as they grew up, maybe their experiences in the field, the lessons they've learned, their preparation, looking towards other hunters, all that gets put into this system, this toolbox, this kit. And as they move through that process, that scenario in the woods, you know, with a live animal, these animals don't want to sit around and get shot, you know. So it's one of those things, it's what we're doing as trying to be successful. We're trying to be smarter and one step ahead of these animals in their own backyard, which is very difficult, obviously, as we look at the numbers here. So as what we're trying to do in the Alpha Bowhunting Coaching Pyramid and the coaching structure is to identify these things, because there's so many people that come through the shop, and I use this as my kind of baseline for gathering a lot of the information. And there's so many new hunters that come into the shop that have never hunted before, maybe never harvested an animal before, or they're trying to find their way through the process and find how to develop their system. As far as what I need to do, one of the biggest questions I get asked in some of the seminars, or some of the people that are inquiring on seminars, is, when do I draw my bow? At what point is it the right time to draw? How do I know that I should be doing this or that? Those are the types of questions. When you look at these top 1%ers, the top 3 to 4%ers, top 1%ers, those questions for them, it comes second nature, okay? And then when you add all the other intangibles and all the other things that they put into it, the preseason prep, the understanding their gear, not necessarily are those top 1%ers the people that can have an effective range out to 80, 90, or 100 yards. That's not necessarily the case. They've understand the game they're hunting, the moving parts, and how to get into the right shot situation to be successful. So with kind of having a broad understanding and a quick understanding as to what really, in my opinion, the end goal, you know, it doesn't need to be the same for everybody, but whether you want to be in that top 10%, whether you want to flirt with that top 10%, you're in the 90% that just, you know, that has not killed anything or has not been successful. Your goal should be to try to eke into that top 10%. If you're flirting in that top 10% regular, your goal should be to get into that top 3 to 4%. And that top 3 to 4% your goal should try to be in that top 1%. So understanding that, you know, the saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that's, one of those things that I could not agree with anymore. The simple fact that if you write something down, you're going to retain it better. It's more likely to come to happen. Writing down goals, writing down your plan, understanding your system, understanding every moving part within that needs to be second nature. So that's kind of the goal. That's where we want to get to. So that's where what we're going to be coaching and what we're going to talk about a little bit here as we move forward is getting you to that point to where the decision-making process is quicker. You commit to a decision in the field. You have confidence when you make that decision in the field. And based off of your preparation and your capabilities, that's where you're going to hopefully be successful in the field. So let's go ahead and keep moving on here from this kind of overall goals, if you will, kind of how we, you know, establish, you know, Alpha Bow Hunting started as a challenge competition and some coaching. And within our coaching pyramid, I have a bunch of videos that are free online on my website right now. Everything from basic shot sequence for bow hunters to understanding gear, why they're there, how they adjust. And then we get into a little bit of target panic stuff, a little bit of hinge release, tension release. Some of what we coach in our seminars, of which now I'm going to be putting out for free, is something that, you know, my goal as a bow hunter is to give back to bow hunting than what it's given to me. And something that I just feel passionate about is, I'm passing things on to my boys that I want them to be ethical. I want them to be good hunters. I want them to be knowledgeable hunters. But I also have a lot of this information that we've ran hundreds of people through these workshops. And so I've been able to dial it in a little bit better. But for the overall goal of trying to reach more people, this information is now going to be going out free. So starting with this webinar and some of the webinars that are going to be following, this type of information, and we're going to be taking nuggets and kind of practical and working you through the process so you understand what our methodologies and principles are. to help you be successful. So just kind of background on that. A lot of information is free already online. There's going to be more coming. So understanding where we're at with effective range and breaking that down. You know, part of what we do in our Alpha Bowhunting Coaching Pyramid is we use measurable data to help you determine, you know, the appropriate vital size. In this case, you use the average body size of an elk from top of back to bottom of belly. We start breaking things down. Obviously, I know it's not a perfectly round vital size we're aiming at. We're using generalized numbers, and then we're starting to self-regulate those. In this situation, as we self-regulate down from what the vitals actually are to what we actually want to adopt as an approved vital size to shoot to, and we test our accuracy at distance, progressively working back one arrow at a time. You got to put the value in each arrow, so one arrow at a time as you work back, and then you accept that vital size. From that standpoint, always taking it one step further, we're going to take our energy that our system puts out. We measure it at point blank, and then we calculate what it is at distance. And we use those multiple parts to help determine our effective range in the Alpha Bowhunting system. This is something I've posted on some videos on YouTube before. Happy to answer questions later on and post some more content on it as well. But that's essentially how we coach establishing our maximum effective range, our M.E.R, right? We're taking actual vital size, actual animal size, vital size, breaking it down less than that, self-regulating ourselves, and then testing to it. So once you understand how we go about that, then we take our maximum effective range and we break it into clusters. I say thirds, it doesn't necessarily have to be equal thirds. Perfect example is somebody has a 40-yard maximum effective range to where they're effective with broadheads, they're accurate into that 8-9 inch vital size, whatever you're aiming at. And let's say it's 40 yards. Maybe your first third cluster is 0 to 20 yards. Your middle cluster is 20 to 30, and your last is 30 to 40. In a perfect world, somebody might have a 60-yard, right? Easy number that breaks into thirds. Simplicity, you want things that are simple to remember, easy to identify, and whatever your distance is, however you get to your distance, maybe you don't follow our principles, but this system, to understand all the moving parts, we break things down into third for simplicity. And I'm going to tell you, moving forward, we're going to go over the why here in a second. So maximum effective range is based off of best case scenario, broadside animal, and figuring the biggest vital size based off of that. It's broadside, right? So what happens now when you get into a different, an animal with a different body posture, body positioning? This picture, for example, frontal vital size, right? We're not taking a 9-inch vital size at this distance. There's no way you're going to be successful if you're accepting all your shot scenarios based off of what your accuracy is with that big vital size. So instead of doing that, you know, and I'm going to go ahead and move on here. So I guess the question being here on the slide, you know, how do you understand what your actual M.E.R is for different body positionings, different postures? Here's another one, right? Quartering two, you know, other shot scenarios that could come about, quartering two, quartering way, uphill, downhill, different foot position. You know, you're on a hillside, you got uneven footing, you're kneeling, you're seated, animals moving, animals bedded, you know, you got weather influences, you got rain, snow, wind, follow-up shots, you know, all these combination of all these shots that you can think of. Instead of having an effective range for each situation, if you have a max M.E.R based off of best case scenario, and then you self-regulate into clusters, that's going to help you be more successful and get back to that quick decision-making process, committing to a shot, green light, red light, right? That's what we coach, green light, red light. If you can quickly move through this because you understand yourself and your capabilities, your system, now we start to move through the actual moving parts of a hunt. And there's not a lot of gray area. There's very little. There is gray area always, but it gets minimized. So when you get that situation in the field, you're not sitting there wondering, I wonder if I can make this shot. I think I can make this shot. Those things need to be out the window, because if those thoughts are creeping into your mind as you're drawn back on an animal, odds are it's not going to end well. So in this coaching structure, as we start to identify our clusters, right? And you can take that M.E.R. and if we're already at season started for some, starts, in a day or two for others, whatever your number is, you plug into that M.E.R. Again, 40 yards, 50 yards, 60 yards. I'm not here to judge you. I want to be able to help you be more successful, whatever your capabilities are. Once we test in our coaching structure, what we do, creating a baseline, we test and we develop what that M.E.R. is, and then we look at how to identify one thing at a time, make improvements, retest, make improvements, retest. So that way you can, if your goal is to push that M.E.R. out, then you know how to do that. But going back to this system, right, in these clusters, now what we want to do is we want to start identifying, based off of some of those scenarios that we talked about on that last slide, where are our approved shot scenarios, where do they fit into these clusters? So that way when you head out in the woods, again, there's no question, it comes second nature. So here's an example of something that, these are just some that I threw together quick for myself. So let's just say, I'm going to use a hypothetical of 60 yards on an M.E.R., okay? And in this 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60 scenario, my green lights, my approved shot scenarios in that first cluster are most shot scenarios, okay? I will even, I'm not here to judge you based off of, I don't know you, right? So if you say, I'll take a moving shot in my first third, if you feel like you're proficient and that's for you to decide. I'm not the moral police here. I want you to understand where you feel comfortable and where you feel like you can be successful and focus on that, but be realistic. So based off how we test M.E.R., it really self-regulates a lot. So understanding how our process works, I'm going to continue on here. Quartering way, quartering two, if the deer's not alert, this is something that we're going to do in another webinar where we talk about on the field, in the fly, in the field, how to identify an animal's body posture, alertness, and a few other things. But so if the animal's not alert, quartering two, and I can get a shot in that first, third cluster, I'm going to consider it. If I can see shoulder definition, arm definition, leg placement, that's a shot I will take. Even if I've got poor footing, I'm again, in this scenario, I'm talking about 20 yards and in. If I measure my 20 yards, I'm usually within an inch, inch and a half, 2 inches of the dot. So to think I can't, even if I have a little bit of variation because of nerves or whatever, and it opens it up to a 4-inch group size, that's how I understand where I'm accepting these shot scenarios. Another one it may or may not be for everybody, a bedded shot, if I can see that shoulder position. I've taken many shots on bedded animals successfully, but if I can see where that front arm position is. Wind, again, if it's an extreme wind where I can't even hold my pins on the target, then it should be a red light, period. But if I can hold my pins on the target steady enough where I can feel like I can execute a shot, okay, I'm going to accept that. A feeding shot, a frontal shot, again, it's not for everybody, but understand where you're at. And a follow-up shot, maybe you've already got one arrow in an animal and he runs out there again and he's looking right at you, alert, aware, but you've got one arrow in there, put a second arrow in there if possible. Moving on, as I go into the next cluster, I start to get rid of a few shot scenarios, right? The quartering two, not going to take that shot likely anymore. The other one that I take out of there, let me see here, kneeling shot, poor footing. There's a few shots in there, frontal shots, get rid of. So there's a few shots that I start to get rid of. And as I start to identify, and I've done this many times because I've been through our class and leading up to how I put the structure together, I'm going to say 80 to 85% of my shot situations are green light up to that 2/3 mark. Anything out of that 2/3 mark into that last third cluster, that's where you start to really scrutinize whether you should be taking a shot. Because honestly, it hurts me inside when I talk to a lot of hunters and when they're saying, I got a pin for that, right? Joking around, knowing that if they get a shot opportunity in the field and they can roll a sight down, they're probably going to let an arrow fly, whether they should or shouldn't. So this whole system is designed to help test you when there's no pressure involved before season. And so that way, once you get to season, you really have a good understanding of what you should and what you shouldn't do. If you're doing more things that you should be doing, odds are you're going to be more successful in the event you get a shot scenario. So again, As I move into my last third cluster, animals broadside, animals feeding, yeah, I mean, most likely those are good shot situations for me. If the wind's not too bad, I'll take that shot. Again, I mentioned bedded. I've taken some of my longer shots on deer at bedded deer. I had one deer where his head was bouncing off the ground because he was sleeping. So, and I actually, believe it or not, I did a seminar in Wyoming a couple years back at the Cheyenne Bowhunters banquet. And I had one guy really question me on this, telling me I was unethical. That a deer can get up, I do agree a deer can get up out of its bed very quickly. But when you have a deer that's literally bouncing its face off the ground because it's sleeping, I beg to differ. And if I can see where that front leg position is, arrows are flying. Okay, that's me personally. Build your own system for your capabilities and what you feel comfortable with. Feeding deer follow-up shot, again, that same scenario. There's, you know, if I put a pretty good shot, I feel like, on an animal and he runs out there and it's flirting with that M.E.R, maybe a touch further, I'm green light in most situations to try to put a second arrow in that animal. So this is an example. This is kind of, let's just say, you know, where we kind of move on to this process to get to what we talked about, right? What is our target stock to distance? So based off of percentages, based off of your capabilities, if you go out and you actually follow our process where you're shooting and you're measuring the distance from the zero at every 5-yard increment as you walk back to test your maximum effective range. One arrow at a distance, walk back 5 yards, shoot another one. Walk back 5 yards, shoot another one. And you track all the data. And you start looking at what this 2/3 measurement is. And when you say, we're taking I'm gonna use 9-inch vital size, okay? So 4.5 inches in any direction from that center is still that approved 9-inch vital size. And if you measure your 2/3 distance, odds are you're still on that 3 inches, 3.5 inches from center, 5.5, 6-inch group at that distance in most situations. So what does that tell me? Yeah, in most situations, that group size, that vital size is gonna take down an elk for sure if you can put the arrow in the right spot. In a mule deer size animal, you're gonna be in good shape. So understanding ahead of time, if you get a shot, an opportunity where, let's say that you need to try to move through the timber to get closer to a herd of elk. Okay, how close do you need to get? Do you need to get to 20 yards? I don't know, it depends on your effective range. Do you need to get to 60 yards? Same question. But this is how we go about teaching in our system how to actually know definitively what that number is. I'm not saying you shouldn't take a shot at your maximum effective range. What I'm saying is, knowing that you're 85% likely to have a green light shot situation at your 2/3 number, get to that distance and then work from there. So knowing that you're gonna increase your odds for success. And again, this is our methodologies, our coaching system, and how we go about working you through a process. Everybody's system is slightly different. Not everybody, some people have the same, you know, distances and shot scenarios that they're gonna approve, green light, red light, what have you. But this is how we coach getting to that target stock distance. And again, mule deer, you know, is a good one, is an example. Now the question gets asked, well, how do you know if you're 200 yards away, what 60 yards is or what 50 yards is? Well, based off of looking at the terrain, if you know that there's a boulder or a tree or a rock that appears to be closer than halfway from you to that animal and you're at 200 yards, now you're starting to flirt with understanding what that distance is. And you can say, hey, if I can get to that rock, if I can get to that tree, if I can use this depression to get to that place, then I know that I'm going to be close to my 2/3 distance. And odds are, if I can get drawn back and at full draw, odds are good. Okay, so that's how we coach 2/3 distance and what we're doing. So moving forward here, what I want to show you, let me kind of skip back. Some of the things that we do in our coaching structure is we bring up situations. I've got a lot of game camera pictures, other pictures that people have taken and given to me, and we work through the system. So if you can, for the next few slides in your mind, think about, okay, what's your effective range is? Again, 30 yards, 40 yards, 90 yards, I don't care. Figure what that M.E.R is. Quickly try to break down some clusters so you understand, okay, I'm 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. I'm 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, whatever. Again, the example of 40, 45 yards, you know, you could be 0 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40. So figure out what your clusters are. Kind of quickly in your mind, tell yourself, yeah, I'd take these shots. I wouldn't take these shots. Some people are like frontal, never. Okay, quartering to, hardly ever. Okay, that's great. Know that ahead of time. So that way, as you walk into the woods in this next few days, next few weeks, you start to compartmentalize what you're doing, how you're going about working through the woods. Maybe it's a tree stand setup. Maybe it's a ground blind, brush blind setup. Understand how you get to determining, this is a good spot to shoot from. Use a little bit more thought into that process, so that way, hopefully you can be successful. So as we go to these next few slides, I'm going to click on them quickly and then click back. And I want you to quickly identify, there's a yardage on top, and based off of what you see, hey, is this green light or red light for me? So let's go to the first slide. 34 yards on the one, 21 yards. Both of them look to be moving slowly, somewhat slowly. Okay, so in a group situation, in a workshop situation, we would be going through 15 to 20 different slides in short increments, quickly flashing a few of them, making you make quick decisions, and then talking about those. Yeah, I would take that shot. I would probably aim here. No, I would not take that shot because of X. So this is some of the things that I'm going to start working into our webinars and into some of the group coaching sessions that I'm going to eventually build into the offerings of what we do. And understanding, helping you, we were calling it situational bow hunting. A lot of people watch hunting TVs or watch YouTube and they say, oh, shoot, you're playing armchair quarterback. And that's great because you're telling, yourself where you would take a shot, where you wouldn't take a shot, or hey, that guy's an idiot, he shouldn't have shot there. Okay, well, that's that person for their system. So more than maybe taking a step back and just identifying the scenario unfolding and how you fit into that system, that way it helps you be quicker in the field. So that first slide, like I said, maybe 34 yards is in your second cluster. Maybe it's in your last cluster. Maybe it's in your first cluster. I don't know. Would you take a shot on an animal that's maybe moving slowly? It doesn't appear to be spooked. The second shot is, again, legal bull aside, just looking more at shot scenarios. This one's front legs moving forward. Maybe he's just getting ready to take a step and you're ready for that leg to clear and you already got your pins on him, right? So these are the type of situations, green light or red light, because really there shouldn't be any yellow light. There could be green light, pause, wait for that step, and then green light again. But let's go ahead and move on here. All right, frontal shot. We've got 17 yards. Animal's coming to you. Maybe you bugled, he's coming looking for you. Next one, 33 yards. Again, is this a shot you will take? You need to know that now. If you're trying to fumble through making a decision in the field, like I said, adrenaline's up, heart rate's, pounding through your chest. You got that animal looking at you in some cases or knows right where you're at, pinpointed you. How are you going to react? Let's make these decisions ahead of time so that way you can be more successful in the field. All right, next slide. 27 yards, quartering to on the bull elk. Looks to be pretty relaxed, based off his head's position. Maybe he's getting ready to bugle. Maybe he's got, smell in the air for some elk. Is this a shot you take? I'm not here to judge you based on that. I want you to know now or sooner than later, yes or no, green light, red light, right? These type of scenarios happen all the time. And the stories that I hear are, man, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that. So that's where my goal with my coaching structure and what we do with the Alpha Pyramid is to help you eliminate some of those, I wish I would have, if I would have only done. Let's try to backpedal, think about these scenarios ahead of time, and try to at least identify, as many situations as we can. Next shot here, 47 yards on that big mule deer, a little bit of brush in the way, you can't see what's behind it. For a lot of people, just based off of that, it should be no, right? I don't know what's behind it. There could be more animals behind it. If I miss, blow through, whatever. Let's just change the backdrop. Let's say he's got a hill behind him or a bunch of trees behind him where the arrow's not going to go through. He's kind of quartering too. It's a little tougher shot situation, and you can't see a lot of definition because of the shadows and the brush. Personally, this one would be one I would probably hold for a little bit. Again, this being in my middle third cluster, personally, I would probably hold and then work from there. So identify these things, understand what the moving parts are, understanding what the limitations are in each situation to help you be successful. I'm going to end on this slide with the scenarios, just because we've been talking primarily on elk. Mule deer is kind of the second species, if you will, that we really try to break down, go based off of size and measurements and that kind of thing. So in my opinion, if I was to encourage you or suggest something to you as you head into the woods and you start to think about the stuff, maybe this is all new, you never heard any of this stuff before, I would take what is our approved vital size for a mule deer, which is 8 inches, and regulate, measure yourself to that, which is still pretty close to a paper plate. And knowing that if it's green light for a mule deer, then you know it's going to be green light for an elk, because an elk's vital size is bigger, assuming the same moving parts. So we'll talk about that more in an upcoming webinar. Again, I know we're in season. My goal is to try to be putting these out every couple weeks, Tuesdays through Wednesdays, Thursdays. I'm not sure yet. I will post it on the website. Links are going to be for free. Not selling you anything here. I really want to help you be successful. I know that our system, if you can simplify what you do based off of M.E.R, maximum effective range, clusters, use those clusters to help compartmentalize green light, red light, and then there's moving parts that we add on. We stack things on here, but this is kind of the overview, right? The bird's eye view of what we're doing. Again, I will be opening up some group coaching sessions to where we're going to take 8, 10, 12 people in a group, and we're going to actually be building out some practice routines and that kind of thing with this in mind, creating the baseline, tracking improvement, and doing group discussions, because learning from each other, building off each other, that's what my goal moving forward is with the Alpha Coaching Pyramid. The webinars, you know, we've done a lot of successful webinars in the shop, or seminars, I should say, workshops, but there's so many other people outside of here that it's too difficult to drive in. So to be able to have you come in for 20 to 30 minutes once every couple weeks or something, talk about a topic quickly, 5-10 minutes, discuss that, talk about some practice situations for the upcoming week to 2 weeks, and then come back and regroup and almost just kind of brainstorm on that, see how we did and work through that. That's what I'm working on moving forward. These free webinars are just an added bonus. So to where we can hopefully get more people in. You know, if you want to learn more, like I said, just stay in tune with alphabowhunting.com. You know, there's a ton more that we have to deliver and to offer and to show you. And I appreciate you coming in and sitting in with season here. I mean, there's some people that are getting ready to head out tomorrow or today. I mean, some maybe getting ready to leave pretty soon, right? Some of you are still, you know, a little ways out from your hunts, but start to think about that stuff. Start to think about what you're actually doing in the woods as opposed to just hiking with your bow. You know, take a notebook, take something small, take notes, jot down how things are going. At this time of year, I always love to go back to last year's little journal that I keep track of in the field and refresh my memory as to the mistakes I made last year. And I guarantee you, because I have not done this yet, I'm leaving on Saturday to go hunt for my first hunt of the year. I'm going to sit down before I head out there, and I'm going to look at this notebook that I've written in 8 or 9 times throughout the season, and I'm going to remind myself of 3 or 4 or 5 different things that I've forgotten about already. And if I mentioned this before in another video, if you can just get that much better, right? Sometimes if you can quantify the percentage of improvement you need to make to be successful, sometimes people would say, hey, it's 5%, it's 10%, you know, maybe it's 20% for some of you. But if you can just go back and refresh your memory of what you messed up on last year and make sure you don't do that again, guess what? That might take up that 5 or 8 or 10%. So all these things matter. You know, the one thing I'm going to offer you guys, there's going to be a lot of windshield time, driving time as you're heading out. If you haven't picked up my book, Shoot or Don't Shoot, I have an audio book online on the website. I'm going to give it to anybody who's watched this webinar for $1. It's usually $15 on the website. If you go to alphabowhunting.com, go to the store and click on the Shoot or Don't Shoot audio book. Type in the promo that I got listed here, 2021 webinar promo, all caps. It's going to drop it down to $1. This is just through the end of September. Give you a little bit of, you know, there's a lot more in the book about this structure and this pyramid and some other things that we'll talk about more in depth later. With that being said, I appreciate you giving me some time tonight. I'm excited to be able to get more into this. I love the working on bows and tuning stuff and, you know, understanding how to build something. But this stuff here that is what's mainly between your ears is what really I get excited about and what I'm more passionate about, if you will. And talking to other hunters about stories and situations that they've encountered and seeing how they've gotten through it or mistakes that they've made. That's what, you know, like I said, that's what my goal is moving forward. So if you guys have any other questions, I'll stay on for a few minutes here, answer those. If not, I'm going to keep putting promos out there or teasers out there as to when the next webinar is going to be. It's going to be mid-season. Some of you may or may not be able to chime in. If not, we're going to have the recorded version of it online. Other than that, like I said, I wish you guys a ton of success because at the end of the day, you know, I get as excited to get the emails and the messages and the text messages from other people that I just know as in passing, some people that have competed with us in the tournament series or customers at the shop. Like I said, I'm really excited to see other people's growth and experiences and their successes. So if you guys have any other questions, chime in. Thanks, Keith, for checking in, man. Yeah, it's
now. Put me in the game now. I came here to prove it. I'm ready to do it. I can't be afraid now. Put me on the stage now. I'm ready to rage now. I feel like an animal stuck in a cage and I'm ready to break out. So what are you afraid of? Those feelings are made up. Get in the game, your moment of fame. Show them what you made of. It's time that we stand up. It's time that we man up. For anyone asking who is the best, we put in our hands.